We have Mark Morales with the Choctaw Nation and Andrew Baker with the U.S. Forest Service. And then we will transition after that to Gesse Bullock with the Alabama-Coushatta Tribe of Texas. And then lastly, we have Miss Mary Huffman with the Nature Conservancy to round out our second hour. Before we get started today, I want to let you know that we are recording the session, except for the very last presentation. We will pause the recording at that last presentation. And then the last 30 minutes of our time together today will be reserved for some Q&A. So if you have, as you listen to the presentations, and if you have questions, you can jot those down, and then towards the end, we will have some Q&A, but some of the presenters will have some Q&A time also built into their presentation. But before we get started today, I wanted to do a quick photo credit. You'll notice that in the announcement of this particular webinar, there was a photo that was utilized that was taken by Dr. Frank Lake. Dr. Lake is a research ecologist with the Pacific Southwest Research Station, and he works in the Fire and Fuels program. And that picture is of a fire on the landscape under some towering trees. And we wanted to give credit because that is a photo that he took during a Trex event back several years ago in 2015. And the fire was on his Orleans Lake property, which is in Northwest California near the Klamath River, and under his tan oak acorn trees. So I think that's a beautiful picture of fire on the landscape, and some of you may have noticed that. So to get us started today, I am going to turn it over to Mark Morales and Andrew Baker. And if you all want to share your screen, and we will get started, and I will mute myself, and you can come off of mute, and we will turn it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All right. Thanks, Lexi. Hey, folks, I'm Andy Baker. I'm the Assistant Director for Fire and Aviation Management for the U.S. Forest Service in the Southern Region, Region 8. Serve out of the Atlanta, Georgia office. And my partner in crime today, I'll let him introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. Mark Morales. I currently work for the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. I'm a fire training officer and agency liaison. Prior to that, I worked for the U.S. Forest Service in Region 8 as well. I worked on the Ozark and St. Francis National Forest in Arkansas, as well as the Ouachita, and was the assistant fire management officer there when I retired.
All right, so let me see if I can get my visuals to share here.
Andy, while you are sharing your screen, I want to remind people that we do have the Q&A box open. So if you think of questions as you're listening to, if the audience members, attendees think of questions as you're listening to the presentations, feel free to type into that Q&A box. The chat is disabled for this particular webinar. Okay, I'll turn it back over to you, Andy. Thank you.
Okay, Lexi, everybody see the screen? Audio and video good?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, Mark and I are here to speak with you folks today about an effort we started in 2022 literally on the back of a napkin. And we were actually in staging on a wildfire in Texas. Mark and I we're both longtime members of the Southern Area Blue Incident Management Team. And we were staged in Texas for some wildfire activity in spring of 2022. And as often happens in staging, your mind starts to wander. And we actually wandered towards some productive activity. And we'll talk about that today, where that's kind of the genesis of this. Like you've heard, a lot of good ideas just come through the beginning of a conversation, and that was certainly the case for this. But basically what that has grown into over 2 years' time is the Choctaw Wildland Fire Module that is owned and operated by the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma through some opportunities that we'll discuss here that the southern region of the Forest Service was able to provide through the bipartisan infrastructure law. So we'll jump right in. Again, as I alluded to, this started with a conversation on a wildfire in early 2022. I was actually reviewing the bipartisan infrastructure law back then, trying to wrap my head around what are all the new options and opportunities that existed in that law. And I ran across this language that you see here, where we have the opportunity to employ young people to modify and remove flammable vegetation on federal lands, including through the use of existing locally based organizations. And of course, one of those that caught my eye was Native Youth. And that literally kind of sparked the conversation that Mark and I had moving forward. So Mark, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, and so when we started talking about it, and and Andy told me the language that was in there, and we looked at it a little bit more, and myself and Tom Lowry, who's the director of the natural resources for Choctaw Nation, had actually had a similar idea for years of just a idea or almost a dream of creating our own wildland fire module, or an 8 to 10 person crew. And so all of a sudden, just over lunch, those two ideas just meshed very well. And it's like, wow, this is something that I think fits us. And the last thing I want to say about this slide, though, Andy, is down at the bottom it says relationships matter. And I think that's something that just can't be stated strongly enough. If you go look at collaborations across the country, you'll see how important those relationships are. And last week I was in New Jersey at the National Wildland Fire Cohesive Strategy Workshop. And throughout that whole week, we kept hearing about these great projects, and it all came from relationships. And it's worth the effort and time to build relationships. And I think you'll see this is just another way that manifests itself.
Yeah, and so from this conversation, we're going to walk you through the mechanics quickly of how 2 years later, the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma now has an operational wildland fire module that can operate on federal, state, and their own most importantly, their own tribal properties for fuels reduction, wildland fire, anything to do with fire management, prescribed burning. This module is a key cog in the machine. So they built capacity for the U.S. Forest Service. They've built capacity for our partners, but most importantly, they've built capacity for their tribe. So how do we get there? So once we had this idea on the back of a napkin, that was the easy part in a sense. We had to then sell this idea upwards. Again, we had the connection to the bipartisan infrastructure law. We felt like it was a perfect fit, and it turns out that it was. So we built a one-page briefing paper that I shared up with my boss, who shared it with our Washington office fire and aviation management leadership, including a financial plan. So we spent a lot of our time at that Texas staging event. I remember trying to build the basics of a financial plan. What would it really take to pull this off? Because we're starting from zero here. I mean, this was an idea. We had no personnel, no facilities, no equipment, no nothing. So the goal was to build a module, stand it up with bill infrastructure money, and then see where it went from there, with the idea that it would self-sustain itself over time. When it built a reputation, that, as we knew it would, the module could build a reputation, and different agencies and opportunities would provide themselves over time. We just need to stand it up and build it. So we built that financial plan, took it to the right folks at the right time. Life is certainly about timing, and the bipartisan infrastructure law was looking for opportunities like this, and we hit it while the iron was hot. Lexi was also a key piece of the puzzle here. So if you have a tribal liaison serving in your agency, obviously we did a lot of collaboration with Lexi as we were building this idea towards reality, both at the regional level and at the national level with the Forest Service. Our tribal liaison offices were engaged. And of course, Mark, I want to speak quickly to your side of the house with leadership.
Yeah, for our side, this was something that was new to us as well. It had been a long time since we'd had, dealing at this scale with another agency. And especially for us, our previous work with the Forest Service had really been wildland fire suppression years ago when we sent out a lot of AD crews from the tribe, and the Forest Service provided the training and equipment for that. But this was something new. And so, of course, we had to talk to our leadership, not only in our kind of line under natural resources, but then eventually they had to go to the chief and explain, this is what we're going to do. This is what it's going to do to benefit the tribe. And again, to provide jobs and opportunities for youth. And just to, continue with what Andy said about Lexi, and it goes back to relationships. I've known Lexi for many years now, and with her position as a tribal liaison, she was really, really crucial in helping us make sure that we were navigating the waters correctly on both sides. And so very important to have that. And I'll step in a little bit with the grants and agreements and the budget staff. Steve Parrish, who works with Andy, was in charge of a lot of that. And, Steve and I laugh about it all the time. We're both fire guys. We're not grants and agreements folks. So we spent a lot of time on the phone with the people from Forest Service grants and agreements, and even grants and agreements on the tribal side. So again, we had to mesh both sides to make sure this worked.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had this great idea. We felt like, and we got buy-in from leadership on both the tribal and the Forest Service side. Then it was we still weren't over the hurdles. I would argue the biggest hurdle was figuring out, so you got a great idea, you've got approval. Now you got to transfer money back and forth. And if you ever, I know most of you that have worked for the federal government or worked with the federal government understand that hurdle. Grants and agreements is really critical that we get that right, to keep everybody financially accountable and really legal. So that was the next big step, was figuring out the proper grants and agreements tools that would help us achieve this goal. Of course, when you think about the idea itself, I've already spoke to, from the Forest Service perspective, the advantages of what we call partner-enabled crews or modules, like we're talking about here with Choctaw. The advantages are obvious from the hosting agency, if you will, meaning the grantor, the Forest Service. We get the benefits of increased capacity through these partners and force multipliers without having all the administrative burden. We don't have to find new facilities. That is almost an impossibility these days for the Forest Service. We don't have to find new fleet. That's handled through the partner. Equipment, IT, all that comes through the partner. We provide the funding. They go do the legwork to make the facilities fleet and IT things, equipment needs happen. And of course, that puts a lot of burden on Mark. But the fact is, tribes, NGOs, smaller entities typically have more administrative freedom to make those things happen than we do these days. So it's a benefit for us. Secondly, obviously, well, I'll let you speak to those last two bullets, Mark.
Yeah, so again, the interest and capacity for the tribe, and going back to what Tom Lowry and I talked about, not only did we want to build some workforce, but also at the same time, we wanted to grow our prescribed burn program. We had pretty lofty ambitions, and just adding this module, this workforce, all of a sudden, we got almost a doubling of our workforce that can help us on our own projects. So that was key. And we have found that most of what we have been able to hire are tribal members. And so that's an obvious win for us. And then the last one is the opportunities, and Mary's going to talk about this later about cultural burning, ecological knowledge, and we were able to send some of our module to the Prescribed Fire Training Center in Oklahoma this past year, and we hope to again this year. And so eventually, hopefully, we'll be able to share some knowledge there as well as learn from that place. So we're looking at every opportunity we can to share as well.
Perfect. All right, so the G&A piece, the grants and agreement piece, where we landed after a whole lot of really good advice, seeking of expertise from grants and agreements, because the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma is 638 qualified, meaning their fire program is independent in a sense, in that they're self-determining. They have the ability to receive a grant directly from the U.S. Forest Service, almost like in the language we typically use. It's very similar to a state block grant that we would provide to one of the Oklahoma Forestry Agency, for example, any of our state forestry partners. Because of Choctaw Nation 638 status, we were able to directly grant them the money to stand this module up through the bipartisan infrastructure law. So that first grant you see there, that's the actual number of the grant if you want to look it up in the system. And so that's what stood the module up: their facilities, their fleet, their personnel, everything needed to stand up a brand new module. That's what that grant provided. And then the agreement underneath there, we have a master petition. Once we had the module stood up, which I'll let Mark speak to that, we had to produce a master participating agreement with the Choctaw Nation so that they could operate on Forest Service property. Once they were operational, which took over a year, right at it, we knew at some point we were going to put them to work on Forest Service property. And so that's what that master participating agreement is for. And the supplemental project agreements tier off of that master. Of course, you have to have financial plans and a whole lot of paperwork that Mark knows about to take this on. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the paperwork side, again, with help from the grants and agreements folks, they helped us navigate through that, but we do have to have an approved financial plan. That's for the Forest Service side, but then also from the tribal side, once we get the grant, then there are potential, at least, for an audit sometime in the future. So we have to make sure that we're tracking our expenditures right and that we're following the financial plan. And so that's a big component of that. And the SPA, which is the supplemental agreement, this year we were able to go burn in numerous states on numerous national forests because of that. And so it really showed this is what we can do. And I think this year we'll see even more of that going on.
All right. So yeah, we included the actual agreement and grant numbers in case anybody wants the gory details of the language that was required to make this happen. But that's the down and dirty version. So that's really, 3 slides. It seems simple, but it wasn't. It took, like we said, it took over a year to stand up the crew. And it's an ongoing effort. You can't keeping young people engaged and having a crew, keeping a crew viable year after year in fire. I think anybody that's tried to do it know it's a challenge. And so, but the challenges are real, but the opportunities are real too. And like Mark said, the relationships, because we had such a strong relationship before we started this, I think is why we've been able to navigate so much throughout. And I'll let Mark speak to how this has kind of blossomed in other areas.
Yeah, so we've got there on the slide that because of our history of working with Region 8 of the U.S. Forest Service, even in fire suppression, led to this. Well, this agreement has led to work with the Eastern Innovation Landscape Network, and the Choctaw Nation in the future will be one of the testing sites for the work that's being done there. And we're a part of that network now and working closely with them. The Southeast Cohesive Strategy Group, I mentioned going to that workshop, the national workshop last week, and some of that and my inclusion in that has come from that as an effort from Andy's shop to see how we can improve interaction with tribes and to get them more involved with that particular process. And so we and I have been able to help with that. And then working with other federal agencies to provide a training area potentially for UAS operations in the future. There's a lot of interest in that. And also this has helped us, as we hoped it would, where we don't have to depend on the Forest Service for supplemental agreements and opportunities in the future. The Bureau of Indian Affairs has used our module fairly extensively. And even last week, they were on an assignment. They've gone on, numerous suppression details as well. And we're looking at other opportunities. And, some of those Lexi has helped us with of just to see what else is out there to work between the agency and a tribe. And definitely implementation capability, as I said, has increased for us. And this spring, we have pretty lofty goals with our prescribed burn program and just continuing to move that up in the future, which will also help us with some baseline funding for our prescribed burn program through the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
And from the Forest Service side, again, the partner modules are such an advantage for us, especially in a year where we're fiscally challenged with federal appropriations like FY25 is looking to be. We're going to have to lean into our partners that we've already invested in because, for example, Forest Service has already made the decision we're not going to be able to increase our temporary workforce like we have in the past for these types of opportunities. And so these partners become critical to our overall capacity as an agency for fuel management work. So the goal long-term was and still is to establish a fully functioning, fully qualified NWCG qualified wildland fire module that enhances its reputation nationally and of course locally. We're both excited at how this has has become a source of pride for the nation itself for all these reasons you see here that I'll pass to Mark.
Yeah, so the NWCG does have qualification set for type 2 and type 1 wildland fire modules, and our goal is to get our module up to a type 1. We're still working on some of the qualifications required. Once we get that, we'll work with Andy to start a certification process that he'll have to request, and then that module will go out with some other nationally recognized modules to gain their certification. And again, we'll hear more from Mary here pretty quickly, but just helping our folks learn more about the relationship with fire and what that means and how culturally important that is. And then we also want to help others as well, other tribes. And that's part of us being here is to show you, here's some success, and here's what it took to get us there. And in the future, if we, have questions that we can help you with, then we're certainly, will help you as much as we possibly can.
Absolutely. All right. So some final kind of devil in the details stuff. How does this work? Who pays for what? Again, as we described, the initial grant was thanks to bipartisan infrastructure law funding that stood up the crew and all their facilities and fleet. The master agreement and subsequent supplementals under that master allowed the module, now that it's stood up and operational, allow the module to travel and actually do the operational work on the project level work across the region and eventually across the country. And then, of course, once those NWCG qualifications are built, and even if they're not, IROC it'll be just like any other resource that you order an IROC when you have a need. Again, the goal is to make it a nationally available asset for fuels and prescribed and wildfire management. So Mark, you want to take this one?
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about this. And again, it's something that I heard quite a bit last week at the workshop. You know, how do you start that? And some of it, again, can be so easy. Is one of the guys that I was with said, well, how did you make a friend in school? Well, you went over and started talking to them. And some of it is that simple. And trying to find a common ground with some common values and see where the mutual benefit is. And that is the beauty of our agreement is obviously it helps regionate with some workforce, but at the same time, they are helping the tribe build up their capacity as well. And so it really is a win-win. And then I think, you know, with the regional and national leadership, of course, Andy's in that position, can talk more about it, but just looking for opportunities. And from the tribal standpoint, that was part of it too, is just really looking at what is available right now. And with the U.S. Forest Service, I've got to say this, the fact that the Forest Service changed from state and private forestry to state, private, and tribal forestry said a lot to me about where the agency's at and the direction they're going. And that's, you know, helped us look at those opportunities. And we continue with the help of Andy and Lexi and the others associated with that.
Yeah, and then of course the final step we talked about is G&A. You can't get around the paperwork. So having the right expertise with grants and agreements, our liaisons can help us with that as well. And they certainly did throughout this process. So that is what we had to share. Lexi, we'll pass it back if there's any time for Q&A.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andy and Mark. And there is I was looking at the Q&A box as you were speaking, there's a few conversation pieces in there around, you referred to the word module a lot. And so there was a question there on what you mean by the word module.
Sure.
And then some kudos to Choctaw Nation for hiring a PhD archaeologist who helps lead those paraprofessional crews for the heritage portion of this agreement that you were talking about. And then some specific questions there around spas and the grant and what that particular funding is about. So if you want to take just a couple minutes to answer those, or you can answer them in the chat box.
Well, I'll touch on that first one real quick, the module piece. That's an important distinction. So when we use the word module, it has a meaning with the National Wildfire Coordinating Group that's pretty distinct. A wildland fire module is as I mentioned, is an actual qualification within NWCG, much like an interagency hotshot crew has its own definition. A type 2 20-person crew has its own definition. So a wildland fire module, I'll let you, Mark, speak to it directly. What is that?
About the module?
Yeah.
The qualifications?
Well, not the qualifications, but it's basically 8 to 12 folks, right? That can do,
right.
That can do prescribed fire and or wildfire.
Yeah, if you look at the NWCG guidelines and like everything, there is a guide for wildland fire modules, and it specifically lists that a module is 7 to 10 personnel that can go across the country and serve in either wildland fire or prescribed fire assignments. And then within the two levels, type 1 and type 2, there are specific requirements. So for type 1, you have to have a little bit higher level of qualification, especially at your leadership. And that's the big differences. And so as you'd expect, as you get more experience, your qualifications go up and you can attain a higher level.
And so what I would say, I was just going to say quickly what attracted us to the wildland fire module, of course, is in southern region. Prescribed fire is key. We can't do anything with our goals in natural resource management or fuel reduction management without prescribed fire. And so that was the advantage, as opposed to just producing a type 2 IA crew or a hot shot crew. We really wanted to lean into this wildland fire module that's really a Swiss Army knife. It's eight, as he said, 7 to 10 folks that are eventually become experts in prescribed fire, but can also do wildfire. So depending on the day in the southern region, you might have to do both, maybe on the same piece of ground. And so we like the Swiss Army knife capabilities of the wildland fire module.
Hey, Andy, I'm going to jump down. There was a question about the red card certifications, who's holding that. And so the way our agreement works with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, we are red carded through the Bureau of Indian Affairs. We use the IQCS system. So I keep up with everyone's training experience, task books, etc. PAC test, all that is done, but it's done to the exact level of BIA and the other agencies. And once we do our side, then the regional FMO for the BIA just goes in and certifies and actually prints the red cards for us. I'm going to jump to Jerome. I'll give you my cell phone number, and you're more than welcome to call me, and I'll see what I can do to help you out with donation.
Mark, yeah, this is Lexi. I was going to say we do have a couple of other comments there. Jerome with the cat donation is wondering if we could talk about some specifics there, and then some other comments around the level of success, and kudos to you all, for getting this over the finish line. So there are some opportunities. I want to remind folks that there'll also be opportunities at the end of all three presentations. We have carved out 30 minutes for additional Q&A, but you can also answer the Q&A in the chat box too, if there are like to put your contact information and that kind of thing.
Will do. Thanks, Lexi.
Absolutely. Thank you both, Mark and Andy. Thank you so much. In the name of time, I think we will move on to the next presenter, who is Gesse Bullock with the Alabama-Coushatta Tribe of Texas. Gesse, if you can come on there you are, and to see if you can share your screen, and I will turn it over to you. And then don't forget to take yourself off mute in just a minute, Gesse.
How does that look, Lexi?
Nope, I don't see it yet.
Nothing.
Yeah, Gesse, we can just see your Chrome, so we're looking at ourselves.
Better? Can you see my presentation?
No, not yet. We don't see it yet. Could you, if you go back to Zoom and you hit the share, and then you should be able to select it.
How about now?
Yes, we see the PowerPoint as a PowerPoint. So if you hit it, and yep, perfect, wonderful.
Excellent.
Ready to wrap.
Okay. My name is Gesse Bullock. I am the fire management specialist for the Alabama-Coushatta Tribe of Texas. I'll be doing this presentation by myself. I don't have a sidekick like Mark and Andy, but we'll see if I can get through it. So with the Alabama-Coushatta Tribe of Texas, we are a federally recognized tribe in East Texas in the Piney Woods, about an hour north of Houston. Um, we a little bit about myself. I came over to the tribe in 2018 after 13 years with the U.S. Forest Service. With the U.S. Forest Service, I held multiple positions. Got a lot of good experience. Got a lot of qualifications, but more importantly, like Mark and Andy said, the relationships that I built in that arena really helped me transitioning to the tribe. And so I've carried a lot of those relationships over to the tribe. When we got this program kicked off, it really helped me down the road. And this presentation will show you the work that we've been doing in our longleaf restoration efforts on the reservation, and the partnerships with other agencies and collaborators that have made it a success. So with that, we'll get started. So longleaf pine is a culturally significant ecosystem to the tribal people, the Alabama-Coushatta Tribe. As you're coming into the reservation entrance, this is the welcome sign that'll welcome you into the tribal lands. This is an old picture of the welcome sign, but it's changed over the past few years. So if you do come visit, you'll see something different. But this is the main welcome sign to the reservation. So in East Texas, the Alabama and Coushatta tribes history in East Texas dates back to the 1700s when the tribe settled in the deep East Texas region, the region known as the Big Thicket region of East Texas. Today, the tribal lands encompass around 11,000 acres with an estimated 1,400, probably a little bit more tribal citizens, both on and off the reservation. Below, these are pictures of past chiefs. The present chief is on the bottom left-hand side. We're in the process of inaugurating a second chief that'll occur in January. The tribal lands, it's that brownish and the tan color. So we do have, this is the main reservation right in here. We do have satellite properties really all around this area. It encompasses around 11,000 acres. So the majority of it, this tannish color is the trust lands. This brown color is the tribal fee lands. So we do have, like I said, we do have tribal satellite properties, kind of scattered all over. Getting back to longleaf, the longleaf range, historic longleaf range, covered a large amount of land in the southeast United States. Once estimated around 90 million acres from the Virginias down to Florida and out west towards East Texas. We live right in here on the western edge of longleaf territory. And I'm told that, the tribe, we were once in Alabama and we migrated west. I'm told that the tribe always relied on the longleaf ecosystems because we knew how to survive. We knew how to live within those longleaf ecosystems. So each stop that we made kind of mimicked the homeland back in Alabama. So came over to East Texas where there was still longleaf prevalent, and the tribe knew how to live and knew how to survive in those ecosystems. I'm going to show you just a quick 1-minute video. There's definitely longer videos, but I'm just going to show you a quick 1 to 2 minute video that kind of kicks off the collaboration between us and TNC. And I think it's a really quick and powerful short video. And before I get started, can you see the video?
Yep, we sure can.
Cool. Can you see the PowerPoint again?
Perfect. Yep.
Cool. Thanks. So early on, the tribal considerations for the longleaf revitalization on tribal lands, again, the tribal, the culturally significant vegetation, not only the keystone species, but also the biodiverse understory of the longleaf ecosystems, provide so much culturally significant vegetation, and it enhances the wildlife habitats that the wildlife love longleaf ecosystems. Additionally, the economic benefits through this high quality lumber and other forest products. We know that the longleaf is a long-term investment. We know it's not going to be a quick return on our timber investments. And this is an investment for our future generations. So providing those economic benefits for our future generations, the healthy aesthetics, the hunting opportunities, and other recreational opportunities to enjoy the longleaf tracks on the reservation. I enjoy riding the ranger, just walking through these areas. A lot of hunters are starting to enjoy the restoration efforts that we're providing to these areas, and it just looks really good, nice and healthy longleaf tracks. And additionally, we wanted to contribute to the longleaf revitalization that's occurring, the longleaf renaissance that's occurring across the Southeast. We know we're on the western edge of the longleaf range, but there's still a lot of opportunities, a lot of funding that goes into the revitalization of longleaf, and we definitely wanted to take advantage and bring this resource back to the tribal citizens. Additionally, to harp on that, longleaf ecosystems are estimated at 3 to 5% of the original 90 million acres of the southeastern United States. Excuse me. So longleaf pine ecosystems are treasured by the tribal people for the vast medicinal and nutritional plants and animals, the hunting opportunities, the lumber and the timber that it provides, But I think most importantly, the basketry, the art, or the artistry that continues to be prevalent when we're talking about longleaf pines related to the people. On the left-hand side, you see some baskets that were made from some tribal artisans. Um, there's a whole harvesting and drying process that goes into making these baskets, but you can see the end product, just a beautiful work of art that comes directly from the longleaf ecosystem. So yeah, I just think that's the most important part of what we're doing. Again, longleaf basketry is a tradition and skill that's continuously passed through the generations. Here you can see longleaf basket makers harvesting needles. It is a lengthy process to brown the needles, but this does occur before any of the baskets can be made. And you can see here a family out gathering some needles. I believe there's some aunts and some daughters and some nieces out in the field here. So this actually my wife's family. And a lot of times they'll harvest the needles. And this is a recent picture this spring, or actually this summer. And here in the next few months, I'm hoping that they continue to make the baskets, and one day show my daughter, and continue to show the future generations that are coming up. Again, the skill is continuously passed through the generations. Above, pictured on the left, or above left-hand side, this is a picture of tribal youth. These kids are a little bit older now, but again, a lot of them have continued to pick that up and continue to run with the teachings that they were taught. On the upper right-hand side is a picture of the late Doris Batiste. She was a well-known basket maker, taught many people, and her baskets are, they were, again, works of art. And so just continue that knowledge, to continue to encourage our tribal youth to pick this up, because it is part of our culture, and we definitely want to keep those resources available for this artistry. So some of the tribal forestry challenges that we face, not only previously, but these challenges still occur today. Absence of active management, and that's due to lack of funding, lack of adequate staffing. The NEPA process is, I've been having NEPA meetings the past week or so, trying to get NEPA, a better NEPA process cleared with the BIA. Management plans, fire management plans, forest management plans, resource management plans, the equipment and other supplies. Just a lack, a combined lack of all this stuff have left an absence of active management on the tribal lands for many years. Forest management activities such as timber harvesting for community development or for infrastructure. So our tribe currently doesn't have an active timber harvesting project or program, only for community development such as new homes, new tribal facilities, economic development opportunities. So, and we're trying to change that with the updating of new management plans. We're trying to incorporate active timber sale management language, trying to increase our capacity through the forest management plans. That way we can move forward with the management that we want to take on as a tribal entity. Other environmental factors such as drought, hurricanes, tornadoes, SPB, wildfires, etc., have always influenced how the tribal forestry program works, and it's always reacting to different situations. But that's always been a challenge for the tribal forestry program. Additionally, the slow growth rate of our trees, and I think that is a factor of all of these combined: the lack of management, the lack of timber harvesting, and the environmental factors. So, um, we have forest tracts that have been planted 30 years ago, and they still aren't the size, aren't the DPH they need to be, that they should be, and that's attributing to the lack of active management over the past um, decades. So, how do we move forward? How do we move forward? So, the tribal leadership's recognition of the importance of longleaf, not only longleaf, but other pine ecosystems for cultural revitalizations. Um, Partnerships with agencies and NGOs such as the NRCS, the BIA, Texas Forest Service, TNC, U.S. Forest Service, National Park Service, and the Longleaf Alliance. Um, I will say that the NRCS, they were real supportive, technically providing technical assistance and funding opportunities for the establishment of the longleaf ecosystem or longleaf tracts. And when I came over from the Forest Service, I tapped into a lot of their resources right away. Obviously, the BIA, they are the um, uh, fiducial authority of the tribe, so we do rely on them quite a bit. Texas Forest Service, they provide sound technical assistance. The TNC, I can't say enough about the TNC. Mary and her group, um, they were there from day one. They offered assistance right away. Had a good relationship with Sean Benedict of the Texas chapter TNC, and we've hit it off right away. And we probably assist the TNC more than anybody, and they probably assist us more than anybody. And we do have a strong relationship with the TNC. The U.S. Forest Service, we're working to build that relationship a little bit stronger than it presently is, and we're working on different uh, projects with the Park Service as well, and the Longleaf Alliance. We definitely tap into a lot of their technical assistance to um, ensure that we're doing the right treatments at the right time. On the bottom left-hand side, we had IPBN, the Indigenous Peoples Burning Network, that Mary will talk about later. We held a workshop of emerging burning or emerging programs across the country. We hosted it at the reservation, and one of the field trips was out to the Texas chapters, TNC Texas chapters, Roy E. Larson, Sandylands, sanctuary longleaf units, and we had a good trip out there. Bottom right hand side, actually Mary and I were on a panel to speaking at the Wildland Fire Leadership Council. They're annually meeting in Atlanta this spring, and we really talked about cultural burning and TEK, and the importance of inclusion and working with our collaborators to encourage the tribal programs inclusion with different projects occurring on federal and non-federal lands. I will say that like I said, Mary Huffman was there from day one, and we had a really good talk. And I shared a special moment with Mary there at the meeting that I just really hadn't had a chance to thank her for all the support early on that she gave us financially and technically, but we did share a moment, and I really had a chance to, thank her for what she meant to our program early on. And Mary, I still can't thank you enough. So in August of 2010, the tribe signed a contract with the NRCS, the WHIP program. It's no longer around anymore, but it was the Wildlife Habitat Initiatives program, contract to restore tribal lands with longleaf pine. So this included the site prep, the timber stand improvement, the tree establishment, chemical herbicide applications, provided funding and technical assistance for including fire breaks, and to do some prescribed burning in this area. So again, the NRCS's role was to provide technical and financial assistance, as well as guidance to make sure that we're doing the right things when we were establishing these units. Conservation planning, they listened to what we wanted to do as far as why we wanted the longleaf there, and the objectives and the goals longer term for this huge investment. Additionally, the resource inventories, the soils, the topography, and other vegetatypes that were present before we started, and the vegetation that we wanted to see come back once we started really managing these areas. So under the WHIP program, there was 400 acres identified on the tribal lands to provide funding and technical assistance for longleaf restoration, longleaf establishment. So a total of 5 different sites, ranging from the smallest is 5 acres and the largest is 127 acres. These 5 sites were planted at a rate of 600 trees per acre. So there was a total estimate of 240,000 seedlings for the whole 400 acres. So, like I said, the lack of active management, such as prescribed burning, herbicide applications, and mechanical treatment applications, allowed a lot of the competing vegetation to become very well established in the longleaf areas. So I'm sure a lot of you now know that longleaf ecosystems need constant prescribed fire. They need constant mechanical work. They need constant maintenance year after year until you can spread it out over a couple of years. This longleaf ecosystem, this longleaf tracts on the tribal lands were planted in 2012. They were supposed to be burned in 2013 and 2014, but upon evaluation of the areas, they determined that the fuels were just too sparse and wouldn't carry through the entire unit. And so looking back on the notes, there was a marginal burn, mosaic burn in 2015 that they did get fire in there, but it didn't really do a whole lot of good for the unit. And so you're looking at 13, 14, a burn in 15, 2016, 2017. And I came over in 2018, and right away I knew we needed to get some fire. We needed to be really aggressive with the management of these areas. And so, again, I started looking at where we at on NEPA, where we at on fire management plans, where we at on forest management plans, and a lot of those plans were severely outdated. And and so when I came over from the Forest Service, I knew all these things needed to be done before we can ever, put fire on the ground. And so it took a lot of effort. I was a one-man show for many years, from 2018, 2019, 2020. And finally, in the end of 2021, we'll get to that later, I was able to hire a staff to carry out these units. But early on, I was a one-man show. I was working to secure funding through multiple parties. Let me just show you. Get into that. We did partner with the NRCS right away. I knew that the NRCS had a big hand in the establishment of the longleaf tracks. So I did reach out to the NRCS. They did tell me that the WIP program was no longer available. So the EQIP contract or EQIP program was the route that we went. We looked at other programs, CSP. There's a few others within our NRCS that provides technical and financial assistance. But this is the one we identified that we wanted to go with. And so the EQIP contract was started in 2020 as a 3-year contract, 2020, 2021, and it ended in 2022. This contract included all 400 acres of the longleaf tracts on the reservation, as well as other forested areas. Excuse me. In this contract, we identified 3 activities that we wanted to move forward with. 474 acres of forest land improvement, 959 acres of prescribed burning, and over 27,000 feet of fire breaks. And like I said, this included all 400 acres of the longleaf tracts, but also included other areas of the reservation. I will say that, this was a huge benefit for the program because we were able to successfully complete all of these acres. And again, we did it with limited people, limited supplies, limited equipment. Like I said, when I came over from the federal agency to the tribe, I was a one-man show for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, 3, 4, 5 years, limited funding, limited resources to complete it. But, we worked with the BIA, we worked with other partners to make sure that we completed this, the obligations of this contract, and it really jump-started our program moving forward. And so moving forward, we got some of these projects done through the NRCS funding. And so we, NRCS funding and TNC funding. So in the spring of 2021, we got a visit from Mark Jackson, the BIA National Fuels Director. And he saw the reporting that we were done, the accomplished acres that we were getting accomplished with relatively no funding from the BIA Fuels Management Program. And so he wanted to see for himself, what's actually going on out here. Who's this small tribe in Texas getting these projects accomplished, and how are they doing it? And so he came down in the spring of 2021, and he did his homework. He looked at different maps, wildfire potential maps, and from the national scene. And, he was looking at it, and he was thinking, this area is in, moderate, at a moderate level. But he came down anyway, and he looked around, and he saw all the wall of vegetation everywhere. And he said, this map that I'm looking at, the map that I studied, doesn't reflect what's actually on the ground. And so we we fed him a good cheesecake, and he was convinced that he wanted to fund this tribe. So, but no, we showed him around. We showed him what we wanted to do. We gave him a good vision for the future, and we kind of laid it out. We want a fuels management program centered around HFR, hazardous fuel reduction, and we wanted to treat non-trust acres through the Reserve Treaty Rights Lands RTRL program. So we were able to write proposals. So he came down in spring. He wanted the proposal on his desk by, I believe, the mid to late June. So that's all I did from May, June. I just sat down and wrote lengthy proposals. Make sure we had all the approvals from the tribe, letter of support from multiple agencies, multiple collaborators, and to support the HFR and RTRL programs for the tribe. Through this fuels management program funding, we were able to hire my position, the fire management specialist, a heavy equipment operator, and a 5-person fuels module through HFR funding. Additionally, we were able to secure project RTRL project coordinator and an RTRL heavy equipment operator funding. Additionally, the BIA provides preparedness funding for an engine operator. But we also have other funding types in addition to the HFR and RTRL program. Again, we have preparedness, forestry, bill. We have water projects going on. I'm over the Tribal Climate Resilience Program. We had CARES Act funding, and we have a co-op agreement with the BIA to act as a reimbursement mechanism for completed treatments, for reimbursements for fire assignments, wildfire assignments. And so it is again, the BIA is the agency that we had the 638 Public Law 93-638 contract with. And so a lot of our funding does come from the BIA, but like I said, we do rely on collaborators to provide other types of assistance for our program. So getting back to the longleaf progression, so here on your left-hand side, this is a unit where we took a picture of the pre-mastication, pre-treatment, prescribed burn treatment in January 2021. Additionally, the picture on the right-hand side is a picture of the post-mastication, and it does have 2 prescribed fire entries in February 23. And you can see the vegetation on the left-hand side. It's you can see a couple of longleaves trees right in there, but you can also see the sweet gums, the loblollies, the greenbrier, just other competing species that do take up the light water nutrients that the longleaf need to thrive. It's taking a lot of those resources away from what's actually being managed for. So we did want to be aggressive with what how we wanted to accomplish treating these areas really, really well. And you can see on the right hand side, you can, we did do some mechanical work in there, but it's really really thick, and the machine can only handle so much. And again, the on the right hand side, left hand side, pre-mastication, pre-prescribed burn in September 20. Actually, this looks like the same picture. as you can see, the vegetation in these areas pre-management was just really thick, and we knew we needed to be aggressive with the management we were looking forward to. So tying this back into the cultural significance of the longleaf tracts, these are some key species that we've seen coming back to these areas. There's a whole list of other culturally significant vegetation that we're monitoring for, and that we'll continue to monitor for pre and post burn. But these are some of the ones that we're seeing come back, at least this spring, anyway. Turkey, we haven't seen turkey in a long time on tribal lands. This turkey was spotted in one of our longleaf tracts that we've been managing over the past few years. Maypop, pawpaw, and mountain mint are all culturally significant, and we are seeing an increase in the increase of these species coming back. There's others that I didn't put on here, but there are others that are increasingly coming back to these areas. These are some of the publications, and the picture on the right-hand side is an award that we won a couple of years ago, the R.E. Jackson Conservation Award, for the work that we've been doing in the longleaf tracts. Really just taking that active management route and really being aggressive with what we're ultimately what the desired conditions that we wanted. Have left a good environment for the longleaf to thrive in. This is Micaiah, our fuels crew lead, burning through one of the longleaf units. This is the guys, as you can see in the previous slides, just the sheer amount of competing vegetation in the areas have significantly decreased over the past few years due to the active management, again, mechanical applications, and a lot of prescribed burning in these areas. You can see here our guys walking through the woods, putting fire on the ground. These guys work together day in, day out. They have a good rapport with each other. They know each other's movements, and it's good to see how fast this crew came together, and the amount of work that they do together. Walking through the woods, they know each other's movements. They know as soon as they pop out on the road, the next person's gonna pop back into the road, and so they got this good rapport working together, and so it really helps. It really helps me as a burn boss, making sure that one, everybody's accounted for, but ultimately, and more importantly, making sure everybody's safe and everybody knows what they're doing. So just having that good crew cohesion really makes my job a whole lot easier, but it also makes the effectiveness of what we're trying to do out there on the land that much better. Again, you can see more fire on the landscape. These areas, that's a picture of earlier this year. You can see a little bit of Yopon, a little bit of greenbrier right in here. And this is all prescribed burn and mechanical treatments. We don't do any herbicide applications, any chemical applications. This is all through prescribed fire and mechanical treatments. And you can see the longleaf trees, starting to thrive. At one time they were merely surviving and not really thriving, but now they are actually thriving. In the next 10 years or so, we'll come in here and do a release, do a thinning, and that'll help them to thrive even further. Again, more fire on the landscape. You can see the guys fueling up their trip torches to get fire. Take more passes through the unit. Some of the outreach that we do, outreach such as what we're doing today, the outreach with the IPPN, the field trips, talking with our forestry professionals in Southeast Texas. We did a presentation for the Texas Forest Association, that bottom right-hand side, just educating those that don't know about our program, what we're trying to accomplish and what we want to do for within our tribal lands, but also abroad. And you can see on the bottom right-hand side, after a good burn, you can see the young longleaf coming back with the green buds coming back. And ultimately, this is the landscape that we want to see. We want to see the grasses, the native grasses coming back. This is what half of one of our longleaf units looks like. It's got a grassy field with some, this is actually a regen, a natural regen on the right-hand side. And so we are seeing that our treatments and our activity is working, and we just want to we just want to ensure, we just want to keep that good work going. So with that, that is the conclusion of this presentation.